Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Crowded Booth. My name is Bryce Koon. We appreciate you tuning in here on a Monday evening. Will Manus going to be joining me here in just a second as we roll along. We did this last year. We'll cut it up into individual clips on the Crowded Booth Cuts playlist on the YouTube channel, so make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're walking through with our friends over at Bet Online. We're walking through all 16 SEC teams tonight. Who is going to go over? Who's going to go under on those way too early preseason win totals? Dust has settled a little bit, so it's time to take a deep dive as we get ready for the summer right here on tonight's episode of the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Will Manus. We appreciate you tuning in here on a Monday evening. Make sure you like the video, hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or you're listening to after the fact with our friends over at Believe Podcast. Continue to get those numbers up because it helps us to keep doing what we're doing. Will, it's time to, I guess, well, we had to do this for several reasons. Last year, we said, hey, you know what, Bryce, you're going to be out of commission for a little bit because wife's having a baby. You're getting ready for a big life change. Let's record something or let's go live. Let's talk about a lot of stuff so we can have some good content. This year, man, you're tying the knot hearing about I guess what are we?
12 days?
Gosh, 12 days. Jeez.
12 days.
Yeah, 12 days.
It's my turn this year.
It's your turn. So you've got the big life event happening in 12 days. So we said, hey, we'll give you some time, obviously, to enjoy that. And we've got a loaded show because this is going to be a long one. I think myself, you and Ralph did the SEC version last year. You and I talked ACC last year. So right now, tonight, we're talking SEC Wednesday night before we all arrive in the beautiful city, the Gulf city of Biloxi, Mississippi. We will talk ACC football on Wednesday. So, yes, without further ado, Will, this is a year for the SEC where I think a lot of people can kind of say last year was a down year in terms of the top teams of the conference. But I will tell you, I do think that there's an opportunity for the teams to bounce back. And I would say this, too, some teams to take the place of some of the top teams of the conference. I think we could see some interchangeable pieces here in 2025.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to look a little bit different at the top of this conference. You know, you say last year was a down year for the conference. I still think the depth was there. You know, it's the more that we're into this transfer portal era, I think the better that these coaching staffs are getting. And I think we really saw that this winter, in these couple portal cycles, the fall, I guess it's winter and spring portal.
Winter and post spring.
Do they call it?
Guys,
do they call it fall portal?
Yeah. It's
I don't know.
They go whenever.
I think we've seen. You know, we'll talk about it here in a little bit. Some teams may be kind of figuring this thing out. Other teams are not, or maybe they think they can have some addition by some subtraction.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get my words right tonight. But you know, it's interesting looking at these rosters and taking a step back and looking and seeing what every program did in the portal. I think it's going to look different for sure this year.
It's going to look different, and I echo the sentiment, too, of that it wasn't necessarily maybe, and I use the wrong words there, a down year in the conference. Like, in terms of, the top teams, they weren't as good as they typically were because the talent had been spread out, but you kind of start to look at where those players are going. They're staying in the conference as long as they get in before that deadline, and some teams are elevating themselves there as well. So we'll talk about the SEC, and let's rock and roll. Well, we're doing this alphabetically, and I think that there's no better person to kick off the first team here. Once again, shout out our fans over at Bet Online. You can use the code BELIEVE50 for your first deposit. You can match up to $50 there. Alabama. Preseason, over under 9.5 wins. Will, tell me if you're taking the over, you're taking the under in Kalen DeBoer's second year, and maybe a reason why you're going that way.
So, looking at the schedule before we really dive into this roster, I think you'll be surprised, but I think I'm leaning toward that over right there. I think I see 10 wins on this schedule. They certainly have some tough ones and some tough ones on the road, but I think they've got enough there to get the job done. You want to start with going through the schedule, or how do you want to go about this?
Just I guess we don't have to go through the whole schedule. Just I guess highlight some of the key games they've got on there. Obviously, week 1 against Florida State.
Week 1 against Florida State. I mean, when you're talking about 9.5 wins and you're putting your money on that, on the over, you need every game, right? And this is really a tricky one, week 1. And we'll talk more about what Alabama did in the portal. This is interesting because the guy that has kind of owned Alabama coaches at Florida State now as the offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn. So, he's not going to be intimidated by that script A. And he knows how to beat this program. Obviously, much different with Kalen DeBoer in charge instead of Nick Saban. But I think it's interesting because Florida State's going to be a lot different. We'll talk about them on Wednesday night, but it's an interesting game. They'll finish up the home and home with Wisconsin this year. I think that should be a win. They go on the road to Georgia, which will obviously be tough. Go on the road to South Carolina, and then they go on the road to Auburn. And we know the Iron Bowl can be spooky, especially for Alabama heading to Auburn. Yeah. Crazy happened there. But the big thing that jumps off me at the schedule, kind of being the Auburn fan and the Alabama hater that I am, it's kind of soft that their Alabama's 2 bye weeks are before Georgia and before LSU. That's if they're coming off bye weeks and losing those games, I'm going to have a field day on our Monday night shows during the season.
I'll add to this. Traditionally, they typically always have that bye week before LSU. That's one thing I've learned down here. Yes. LSU takes the bye week before Alabama. That second weekend in November typically. The one thing that's crucial there is obviously with them kind of playing Georgia more often now in Alabama, it feels like I don't know when they typically had it, but I guess where that schedule kind of sits, like 3 games in a bye week kind of seems pretty early to me, like in terms of when you get it. I would have rather seen it maybe if I was an Alabama fan, I would have rather like switched the Vandy game in my bye week and had the bye week right before Tennessee and like maybe got a bye week and then 2 games, then another bye week. I don't know. It's interesting, but Alabama's schedule, to your point, 9.5 wins. Like when you're talking about in the betting industry, 9.5 wins is tricky because it's one of those things where the Crimson Tide, in my opinion, they've got a scenario to me where we don't really know what that offense is going to look like. You have Ryan Grubb, right? And we can kind of take this conversation into the roster now, Will, because you have the guy that Kalen DeBoer originally wanted to be the OC. That's kind of a storyline that a lot of Alabama fans are kind of hinging on because it's kind of a scenario where really kind of disappointing in terms of last year, obviously below their standards for what they want. But you've got something to kind of put hope into, new quarterback and kind of the OC that DeBoer really originally wanted. That also being said, I still think their defense is really going to be good. Like, I think defensively, Alabama's not going to be far off from who they usually are. The big question mark for me here is, and I'm guessing you're taking the over on 9.5 wins?
Yeah, I'm taking the over on 9.5 wins.
So the question mark is that quarterback position. I was talking with someone the other day that is close to the Ty Simpson family, and they were kind of talking about that there was some uneasiness because I know you've read a lot too, and we've all talked about this. Like Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer didn't necessarily have a big coming out party in terms of naming Simpson the quarterback. This was something that was more kind of oh, it's a battle, it's a battle. I think a lot of that was done to kind of keep everybody happy through the spring portal cycle. Then they say, yeah, if we were playing today, Ty Simpson with the quarterback. If that works, I'm cool with the 9.5. But if it doesn't, I like some of the options they have, man. But I just think, I don't know. That makes me nervous. 9.5 is a lot. I'm going to actually, I'm taking the under because I will say this. I think they lose at
It's
Georgia.
a lot.
And I think I think this LSU team's got a pretty good shot to beat them in Tuscaloosa. So that's 2 losses right there. If you don't have your quarterback situation figured out, you could very well hiccup somewhere else.
Early in the year. Let's not talk about that last game. But talking about their quarterback position, you've heard me say it many times. I'm just kind of sitting around waiting on DeBoer and Ryan Grubb to name their guy, their star quarterback that they recruited to Washington, and DeBoer talked into transferring to Alabama with him and Austin Mack. I've just kind of been sitting around waiting on them to name him as the starter. So it's been really interesting to me to see them kind of sticking with Ty Simpson is not the right word because he hasn't started yet. Obviously, he's highly touted. Was he a 5-star recruit?
4-star at least.
4-star. I mean, highly recruited guy. Obviously, a lot of talent there, but I just kind of thought with Austin Mack kind of being their guy. I mean, he was the next in line at Washington behind Michael Penix.
Mm-hmm.
That he would kind of take over at Alabama, but we'll have to wait and see.
We talked about it a little bit defensively. What do you like about this group? I think they've got some really good weapons. I think they're going to be pretty disruptive. I think this is a season that really could be predicated on your defense going to have to win you the close games because I don't know if this offense can win you the close games quite yet, especially early in the season. They got to go out and dominate defensively. Maybe that offense develops as the year goes along, but I guess kind of to round it out, maybe your thoughts defensively about the group.
Their big addition in the portal was Kelby Collins, defensive lineman from Florida. Kind of anchor that defensive line. I think he's going to be able to. He's going to be the guy causing a lot of the disruption up front for them on that defensive line. He did it. He did a great job of that at Florida. If he can step in and do that for Alabama, that's where good defense starts is up front. And if he's your anchor in the middle, you got a pretty good one there. And then on the back end, they brought in Cameron Calhoun from Utah, cornerback, to probably be their number one cornerback. I mean, he was a 4-star transfer by 24/7. So, they added some talent. They lost a lot in the portal, but on the defensive side, it's not a ton of guys that played all that much. Jaheim Otis and Damon Payne on that defensive line, big losses, but they get one guy back with Kelby Collins coming from Florida, but this is the era we're in. It's going to be new faces for everybody. And the big thing for Alabama, they brought in talent or similar level talent than what went out the door. You're muted.
I said I was going to say, shout out to the wife. She just brought me a bottle of water while we were doing that because I was about to get a little choked up talking about what Jackford's saying down there, the first non-Saban quarterback, Johnny, pandering to the Auburn fan on the show. Bama under and DeBum gets fired, he says. Real quick, let me take a sip here. One strength they do have, I think, is the offensive line. Caden Proctor, kind of a guy that a lot of people feel like going to be a top 10 pick. Parker Brailsford, another really solid player they've got on the line. They kind of figure that out. That's going to help whoever is at the quarterback position. Wide receiver, you're going to have some weapons to throw to. We don't need to talk about the now 18-year-old receiver from Saraland that they have. Everyone knows him pretty well, I think, at this point. But no, I'm going to.
And they brought in Isaiah Horton from Miami.
Yeah, Isaiah Horton's also a really good weapon. I like Alabama's team. Hear me out this because not a lot of people in the live show are going to see this. When we cut this up, this is where we know a lot of the fan bases kind of hit the 8 and 10 minute clips. Will's taking Alabama in the over. He's the noted Auburn fan. I'm taking Alabama in the under. I think 9-3 again, and we'll see what that does. So that's the Alabama Crimson Tide. Any lasting thoughts?
Winning 10 games is very, very hard. So that, I think that says a lot about where I think that they're at.
Yeah.
Because that to me is winning all the games they should win and losing one or one more that they maybe shouldn't lose.
Yeah.
Have to wait and see.
Clayton, as always, the SEC sucks. All right, we go, I guess, a little bit to the northwest now, Fayetteville, Arkansas, where, Will, it's an interesting season. You said earlier in the offseason that you thought that this team had probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks, not just in the SEC, but in the country. Let's head over to Sam Pittman's Arkansas Razorbacks. Bet Online has the preseason over-under win total at 5.5 wins. I will tell you this, if they hit the under on this, Sam Pittman's no longer the head coach at Arkansas. If they hit the over, he might still keep his job depending on what he gets there. But I will
Might
say
not be
this,
the head coach.
he still might not be the head coach. He's had to hit it over and then some. That being said, I guess I'll kind of go first on this one. This is a team that, lost a guy like Andrew Armstrong last year. That was a really pivotal part of their offense, the wide receiver spot. Bobby Petrino did a really good job, I thought, with the weapons they had, utilizing Taylor Green, utilizing what they wanted to do. There's a lot of teams across the country that are very predicated and, I guess, focused on what their quarterback can do. I think Arkansas is one of those. If Green stays healthy and plays consistent, you could get over that 5.5 hump. But I guess what I will say is I would kind of take it here and look at this schedule, Will, kind of like you did with Alabama. Let's take a look at some of the key games, the key matchups. You could argue they kind of start off, I don't want to say easy. You got first 2 games. Okay, you're playing an FCS game. You're going to play another bye game where you host the fighting Red Wolves of Arkansas State, which is just a fantastic matchup. But man, you got to go get 6 wins against this schedule. Okay, Ole Miss at Memphis, Notre Dame, Tennessee, A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, LSU, Texas, Missouri. Well, I'm just going to be real with you. I don't see it. I'm taking Arkansas on the under here way too early in the season. I'm not saying 3-9. I'm saying 5-7. And I still think that you could look at it and say, man, that's not a bad 5-7 team. That schedule's just brutal. So not a ton of in-depth stuff there on Arkansas. I think it's pretty surface level what we're talking about here. Taylor Green's a really good quarterback, but man, 5.5 with that schedule, I'm sitting with the under.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and I think it's because of the defensive side of the ball. I mean, this offense, they're going to be good on the offensive line with Sam Pittman as a head coach. Bobby Petrino showed you last year just how great of an offensive coach he is. I mean, everywhere he's been, he's done more with less. He did that last year. Taylor Green is his quarterback. He went out and got him to transfer from Boise State, and was really good. But I look at this schedule, and I'm just trying to find the winnable games outside of those first 2 games. Is Memphis a winnable game? I know Gavin's going to drag me for this, but Auburn might be a winnable game for them. Just you think of recent history. Since Sam Pittman has been at Arkansas, it's been very competitive against Auburn. Very, very competitive.
And Arkansas does get that at home, which is going to change a lot of things for an Auburn team that could be topsy-turvy.
It could. Mississippi State is winnable. And then, that border war game at the end of the year against Missouri. I mean, those are if those are their most winnable games, I don't know how you get to 6 wins.
Yeah.
I don't. And, this could be a fun team. We could look at the end of the year. Taylor Green's a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, and they put up points, but they just can't stop anybody. Mm-hmm. And, it's disappointing because Arkansas, they're fun to watch with that quarterback. Sam Pittman, his players obviously love playing for him. That's probably why he still has his job. But I just don't see how they get to 6 wins.
This is a team that was hit pretty hard in the portal too. And when you kind of looked at what they have to rebuild in terms of the roster, there's some rosters and there's some coaches, I'll say, and we praised, I guess the job that they've done over there with kind of what they had. We're going to talk about it in a second. I think Lane Kiffin's kind of been the architect of getting guys in and making it work very quickly. It hasn't resulted in a championship, but just in the way that they do things. I don't know if Arkansas is built like that. Like, I just don't know if Arkansas, and maybe that's a naive take, and we'll have some Hog fans kind of get in the comments about that later on. But I think that's one of the things that concerns me is, can you be that program that really changes a lot? And yeah, you keep a guy like Taylor Green, you keep some core players, but man, I got to see it close for 3 years. Landon Jackson, that's a guy who was drafted by the Bills, really high floor player in the SEC for them on the defensive side of the football. So you talk about it's a make or break season there for Sam Pittman. You go back to that schedule, Will. I mean, if you're saying the gimme games are Alabama A&M and Arkansas State, okay, I'll give you that. There's 2. Can you find 4 more that you're like, yep, I feel more than 55% confident that we can win that game? At
I see
Memphis,
one. I see
Mississippi
one.
State.
Mississippi State.
So, and even if you give me Memphis there, that's 4. You still need 2 more. Like, are you good enough to pull off an upset against somebody? So I don't know. It's interesting. Arkansas 5.5. I'm going with the under. Are you rolling with me in that?
I'm rolling with the under. And here's Gavin, always fact checking me. Auburn played their best game under Hugh Freeze last time they played up there. That is true. True statement.
Maxwell, I like that RGB mic, Will. Yeah, there you go.
It's the same one I've had forever.
He's just showing it off. I like the placement. We talked about that before the show. You like the placement over there.
Yeah.
So Arkansas 5.5 wins. Okay. We let you have the spotlight last week and talk about your Auburn Tigers. We're going to do that here because when you talk about betting and you talk about teams looking to rebound or teams that could continue to falter, Auburn at 7.5. Man, that is, I'll tell you this, Will. If it was Auburn at 6.5, I'm hammering the over. Like, I'm hammering it. If it's Auburn at 8.5, I'm hammering the under. 7.5 is why Vegas makes their money, because this is a tricky spot. Obviously, man, you know a lot about this team. You've kept up a lot with what they've been going on. Where do you sit with this Auburn team? Because to me, it is 7.5 is just a weird betting line coming into a season in terms of win totals.
It is, and I'm thinking very hard about which side to take on this, because the last 2 years, really the last 3 years, some weird things have happened to cause me to be wrong on my prediction. What was it? 2021. I had over, I think it was 7.5 in 2021. Auburn starts off the year 6-2 and then loses 5 straight in this season. And then what was it? 2 years ago, Auburn got off to a good start with 3-0 or 4-0 and fell apart. But this year has to be different for Auburn. I talked about it last week with Hugh Freeze. It has to be different. We've talked about it a ton. You feel like it's the quarterback play this year. I don't. I disagree with that.
To an extent, it is.
It is to an extent. It's the most important position in the game, maybe in all of sports, most important single position. But this team, this offense that's built around Jackson Arnold is, on paper, the best offense that Hugh Freeze has had, better than the last 2 offenses that were built around Peyton Thorne. And for me, it starts up front. I think Auburn, finally, I could feel like I could say this more confidently than I can in the last probably 6 or 7 years, that Auburn upgraded on the offensive line. They go out and get Xavier Chaplin and Mason Murphy to play the tackle positions. Chaplin from Virginia Tech, Murphy from USC. Those guys should come in and be starters right away. If they're not, Auburn's going to have huge problems on the offensive line, which is going to cause everything else to break down. Jackson Arnold, he's the quarterback. Everybody's seen the price tag on Jackson Arnold, and he's the most talented quarterback that Auburn has in the room. He's going to be the starter. We talked a lot about his year last year at Oklahoma, and, you know, you and I both at least feel like a lot of that blame can't be placed on him. I mean, his offensive line just was injured, in and out, just kind of a disaster.
It was a disaster. It was a worst case scenario for that Oklahoma offense in terms of health.
Yeah. So he's going to come in and be the starter for Auburn. The offensive line should be good. Connor Liu, Pro Football Focus graded him, I believe, as the 3rd, maybe the 4th best returning center in the country. So Auburn's got to find some guards, and that's a good problem to have. If you need offensive linemen and you've got your tackles and your center sorted, you feel good about trying to find some guards. You look out at wide receiver. Man, Auburn brought in 2 really good ones out of the transfer portal. Eric Singleton Jr. from Georgia Tech, Horatio Fields from Wake Forest, and I've been really cool on Horatio Fields. I'm like, what? a Wake Forest wide receiver. Did Wake Forest even pass for any yards last year? Did they throw for any touchdowns last year?
What did Wake Forest do? I guess you had to figure that out on Wednesday.
Right. But Horatio Field's been really good in the spring. A lot of excitement around him. And you throw in Cam Coleman in the mix. You've got 3 really good wide receivers. Got Perry Thompson coming back, who should be getting more catches for Auburn. And it's like you've said, if Jackson Arnold can just kind of play point guard, then the Auburn offense should be better. Just don't throw the ball away on 4th down, and you'll be better than the last one. Looking on the defensive side, coming in the portal, Chris Murray coming in off the edge. Auburn needed a body at edge, and Chris Murray coming from Sam Houston. A lot of good reports from him coming out of spring. Your guy at LSU, Xavier Atkins, coming in at linebacker. Auburn needed some bodies at linebacker. The big one in the secondary, Ryan Strader. Auburn needed a corner. The reports coming back from him in the spring have not been great, but he's really athletic, was really good at Miami, Ohio. But again, this is a huge step up from the MAC to the SEC. Mm-hmm. I still don't know though, because I'm worried about the mindset. I said that on Wednesday. I'm worried about the mindset at the top of the program. Can Hugh Freeze get it done? I think from day one, talking with Auburn fans, that's kind of been the question. Can Hugh Freeze get the job done? And the job is compete for a national title, compete for the SEC championship. Yeah, those go hand in hand this day and age. Certainly, it's been that way for the last 20 years. Can Hugh Freeze do it? And I don't think there was much question that Hugh Freeze would get the talent back to where it needs to be, but was it going to get the wins? He's got to this year. Yeah. I'll do it. I'll be a homer. I'll take the over. I think Auburn can get to 8 wins.
Yeah, Maxwell, don't remind Will. According to Freeze, the job is a bowl game. I want you to answer this question, but I do want to give my take real quick. So Auburn over under 7 wins, 7.5 wins. You talked about it. This is such a weird number to kind of sit on when you look at this. The one thing I do like about Auburn, and you've been kind of very critical of, is the offensive line play. If that to me, and I love Clayton's comment here, right there. That's great. The Auburn offensive line has to be better. If it is better, then Jackson Arnold will be better. I see a lot of people in the comments talking about it was overhyped. He wasn't that great. The circumstances dictated a lot for him. And like, look, there's stuff that was on his shoulders as well. The picks, the turnovers, I saw someone said that was on him last year at Oklahoma. You still can't make bad decisions even when you don't have what you need. That's the mental fortitude of playing one of the more important positions in all of sports. That being said, if the environment around Jackson Arnold is as good as Hugh Freeze wants it to be, I'll take the over. But man, I'll side with you, man. I'm taking the over. I think Auburn can get to 8 wins, an 8-4 season. An 8-4 season, a bowl game win gets you 9-4, and will truthfully another top 8 recruiting class, another good portal class, and the pressure's on to get a double-digit wins. I mean, the pressure's on to make a playoff after that. So. Yeah, but I do want you to answer this question real quick. So, how many games till Deuce plays? Sid Irish.
I think the earliest at Deuce night. Well, may not be fair to say that.
Because garbage time. Because he can play up to 4 games without losing his eligibility.
Right. I'll say like legitimate minutes. 2026. I do. There's a lot of hype around Deuce, of course, being a 5-star quarterback. If Deuce plays this year, Auburn's in trouble, I think. I think things have gone really bad, really poorly. If
it's not an indictment on him, it's just bad evaluation from. Because they're also probably saying Ashton Daniels is completely unusable from a quarterback standpoint as well in that situation. Sitter says Deuce is a dude. I think 8-4 should be the ceiling if Jackson Arnold is your quarterback, and I see obviously Sooner Cowboys in there. I understand it was a bad season in Norman, and we'll talk about Oklahoma obviously here later in the show. That is all.
Before we wrap up, just want to talk about the schedule.
Go ahead, yeah.
And probably the reason Auburn get to 8 wins, for what is not normal for Auburn fans, the SEC schedule is nice to Auburn. Seems like for the first time ever the last 2 years, it's been nice. Missouri's in there, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Got to win those 4 games, and you just got to find 4 more. You got South Alabama, who was decimated by the portal. You have Ball State, should be a win. You have the FCS Giants that are the Mercer Bears, which is going to be tough the week before the Iron Bowl. That's what, 7 wins, and you're looking for one more. And you would think that'd be easy, but the way it's gone the last 4 years for Auburn, it's getting that 8th win is elusive. When that seems all Auburn could do was get 8 wins. Now Auburn can't even get that. Going to Oklahoma and going to Texas A&M back to back and to end off September is going to be interesting. And those 2 games both feel like it'd be the result is going to see the 2 programs playing go in opposite directions.
I'll offer this as kind of a further hot take maybe on this. September 20th into the 27th tells you if this team is going to really exceed expectations. That stretch from October 18th to November 8th is going to tell you if Hugh Freeze is the head coach in 2026. If you lose at Oklahoma and A&M, he's not going to get fired. You still have plenty of runway to be able to do what you need to do. If you don't capitalize on matchups that in the preseason we think are winnable, home against Missouri, at Arkansas, home against Kentucky, at Vanderbilt, if you don't at least go 3-1 those matchups, I think Hugh Freeze is gone. So that's what I'm saying right there. I think the 20th and 27th, to your point, is saying if you lose those, it's just another kind of mid-year for you. If you lose the other 4, 2 of those 4, 3 of those 4, then you're searching for a new head coach, and it's John Sumrall time again on the Plains. So
he's smarter than that.
That's the Auburn Tigers. All right, we're going to flow down to Gainesville, Florida. That sounded like I tried to say fly down, and I admit I was going with the show flow, and then so it sounded like I was really undereducated talking there. I do live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I promise I'm not a product of the education system down here in Louisiana. Florida under 7.5 wins. Will, this is a program that, man, we talked about last week. Ralph hinted at it as a team that if they really underachieve, they've got enough on their roster to where you feel like you could get a head coach in there that could really right the ship quickly. But under 7.5 wins for the Gators. I'll kick it off here before we get to the schedule. The things that stick out to me when you're a team like, in this position, maybe it kind of even talks about there's a lot of teams in the 7.5 to 8.5 win range. You have to have potential studs at key positions. Well, DJ Lagway, and I'll say this, I think has the potential, the body type, the intangibles to be the best quarterback in the country. Like he has that skill set, that tool set. Now, whether he develops, that remains to be seen. But for Florida, you have an All-American level center at Jake Slaughter, who is a really, really good football player, one of the more higher returning offensive linemen in the country. You have a guy in Trey Wilson coming back for his redshirt sophomore year. Aiden Mizell is going to be another guy. They have a very impressive freshman 3-headed monster of Dallas Wilson, Nashawn Montgomery, and Vernell Brown III, who are really good, as well as some veterans. So at running back too, Jaden Ball, probably one of the more underrated running backs we're not talking about in this conference. So what I just tell you, offensively at your skill positions and the anchor, I know the left tackle gets a lot of love, but you got to have a good center. You know that as well as I do. If you've got that, you feel pretty good about what you're doing. So that's why I like Florida offensively. Gavin was putting the notes together, and I've talked with good friends, Blake Ruffino, about this over at AYS. Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle position, is probably one of the more talented guys that the common college football fan does not know. Caleb Banks, turn on the tape, absolute game wrecker in what he can do, wins one-on-one battles. I got a chance to watch him against LSU last year, was beating up on some guys that are on NFL rosters right now heading into the summer. So that's a guy. You have Tyreek Sapp coming off the edge. You got some other, players there too that you really have. Grayson Howard, the transfer middle linebacker. So what I'm saying, Will, is I love everything about this team. As we know, the rosters from last year just flip home and away. And that's where I think that when you go down to whether you want to take the over-under on this, you kind of have to be worried about the maturity of this team. Not like they're not bought in, but how much have you grown up to be able to live up to these expectations? So for Florida, you're going to know very early on, like we talked about with Auburn, September 13th, you should be 2-0 heading into Death Valley. You're going to back up the very next week, head down to Coral Gables. Then you're going to take a bye week, come home. You're going to play Texas at A&M. You get, I guess, a breather against Mississippi State, Georgia. So essentially from September 13th to that November 1st game is going to make or break your season. And when I look for 8 wins, I mean, look, I'll give you the first 2. I don't even know what LIU is, respectfully. Is that Long Island University? Like, what
I
is
don't know
that?
what it is either.
I mean, I've seen them play mid-major basketball, but I don't know what that is. LIU, South Florida, I'll give you 2 there. Mississippi State, I'll give you 1. That's 3. Buddy, I mean, Kentucky, you should go win, but what if you're battered and bruised heading into that game, coming off of, that? What if DJ Lagway doesn't develop? Like, we've talked so highly about Lagway. I love what he brings to it, but what if it doesn't happen? Man, you're kind of in a world of hurt because there's no veteran Graham Mertz to kind of help you pick up the pace and give you kind of a floor. So as much as I love Florida, man, I'm going the under. That might be crazy. I just think that this schedule is incredibly difficult to navigate. And if they do go on the over, please, I want to be wrong on this because I like Billy Napier. I like DJ Lagway. I like the makeup of this roster, man. But they're going to have to show some things under Billy Napier that they showed a glimpse of late last season. But can you put it together for a full 3 months? That's going to be the difference maker for me.
I feel the exact same way that you do. It's hard for me to confidently see 8 wins on the schedule as we sit here on Memorial Day, May 26th. Because this is like a boom or bust, it feels like. And it feels like it all kind of hinges on DJ Lagway. Can they score enough points? I look at what happened in the portal. They got decimated on the defensive line by the transfer portal. Jack Pyburn going to LSU, TJ Searcy going to Texas A&M. 2 guys that would have been two of their primary pass rushers.
Yeah.
Can they get to the quarterback on defense? Because, seeing the way both of those 2 guys played, especially Pyburn last year. I mean, Pyburn can get in the backfield and cause havoc. That was a huge pickup for LSU.
Yeah. Huge
loss for Florida. Okay. And then looking at the schedule, that on the we know how you win in the SEC is get to the quarterback because there's some pretty good quarterbacks across the SEC. Some pretty good ones. If you can't get to the quarterback, you're going to struggle on defense, no matter how good your secondary is, no matter how good your linebackers are. I mean, if you don't have a guy putting pressure on the quarterback, you are going to struggle defensively. So it's hard for me to be confident and see at least 8 wins. It's also interesting kind of the way the conference flipped the Tennessee and LSU games on Florida's schedule.
Yeah.
Normally Tennessee's played early in the year. LSU's played late. This year it's going to be the opposite. These last 3 games for Florida are going to be very interesting, I think. At Ole Miss, home against Tennessee, home against Florida State. I certainly think they can win. They can win 2 out of those 3 games, but it's like you said, or how beat up are they from the first half of their schedule?
Yeah.
And kind of hinting at what I'm going to say a little bit later. I think Ole Miss and Tennessee may take a step back from where they were a year ago, and it'd be a good opportunity for Florida. They could really finish strong and win those last 3 games. I could certainly see that happen.
What we're saying here with Florida is, you're taking the under as well with them, and Johnny says Florida could boom, and that's a great assumption. This is a team that very well could win 9-10 games and find themselves in the 12th playoff spot. Like, they could do that. It's just going to be really hard, and you're going to have to win some games on paper that are going to be 50-50. Like, you're going to have to go to LSU and beat them. You're going to have to go to Miami and win. And I just can't confidently tell you here on May the 30th, or May 26th, that's going to happen. You're going to have to beat Texas at home. You're going to have to go to College Station the next week and win. Like, this is what people, this makes people mad. This is what the people talk about when we talk about the grind of the SEC. blanket statement. How did I lead off this segment with? Love the roster, love the makeup, like where the coaching staff's headed, like all of these things about Florida. But then you get in the schedule. Man, when you play in a span of 5 weeks at LSU, at Miami, home against Texas, at Texas A&M, the average coach is thinking, can we go 3-2 in those games?
Yeah.
Like that's if you go 4-1, you got a chance to do some damage in the playoffs because
we're talking about Florida could win the national championship. I think if they win
4-1 in that stretch, like, and I don't care if Texas A&M isn't elite. It's the mindset
4-0. It's only 4 games because they have a bye week in between Miami and Texas.
So
but add in there November 1st they play Georgia. Just call it that stretch. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That 2-month stretch right there. That 8-week stretch. 6 games.
Oh, and by the way, you come out of that.
Those 6 games.
You come out of that, and if you are limping and you got to find some wins to even get to bowl eligibility, you got to go to Kentucky, who could be fighting for Mark Stoops' job. You have to go to Ole Miss, in doing that. You got to play Tennessee at home, which that rivalry is a really fun one. I think it's going to be even more heightened when you play that game at the Swamp there. And you got to play a Florida State team, which I don't know how good they're going to be, but that's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in those games. So I just cannot – I would project Florida to win more than 7 or 8 games. I just can't tell you that they're going to. And so if I put my money on it, I'm sitting with the under. So that's the Gators. That's the Gators here. All right, let's we're doing okay on time. All right, let's go real quick here because this is a fun one, Will. Georgia 9.5 wins. A lot of people know kind of laying the land here with what they have. The biggest keys here. And real quick, I want to get this. Big Gator swag says I've got us at 9-3. Could wholeheartedly see that. Like, do not want it to be taken as disrespect against Florida. It's just got to prove some things, and I love the makeup of the roster. Georgia over under 9.5 wins. Will, I'm going to start it off with a hot take here. I'm taking the under on the Dogs. 9-3, a regression season in terms of record. Because here's the 2 big things for me. I like the makeup of Gunnar Stockton. I love it. I like the mentality of what he brings. But does the talent follow in suit to what they need at the quarterback position? It's not a quarterback-dependent offense, but they need a really good playmaker. Does he make enough growth? And then the next part, man, which is going to directly, go with that because I think this defense is going to be really good. Like, I think it's going to be really good again. The run game. Nate Frazier's back. But that offensive line lost a lot off a group that wasn't great at running the football. One of the more historically bad years over the past decade for running the football for Georgia. If they can't get back to who they are, they're going to put too much pressure on Gunnar Stockton. I think that does not bode well for them. I'm taking the under at 9.5. I would go 9-3. Big Gator swag says Georgia 8-4. There's not a ton of questions about Georgia. They're just very, very important ones. Offensive line and quarterback, which kind of sounds, I guess, a little bit familiar to the team that you cheer for there too. I think a lot of people just assume it's going to be okay, but they've got to answer those questions. The good thing is they don't really have a marquee matchup to start the seasons off, so they can kind of work some of these guys in.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you here and take the over.
You said I was pandering. I was pandering to the fan base back here. That's what I get it.
I'm going to take the over because I think I'm trying to find the right words here. It was time for Georgia to make a change at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for the team, the culture of the program and this 2025 team is going to be very beneficial. And that is one of the things that you can't quantify. There's no metric for culture and for the players playing for each other. I think the way the season ended and kind of just all of 2024, even though it was wildly successful, won the SEC, made the college football playoff. You got to know for Kirby Smart that 2024, he's got a bad taste in his mouth about the whole season because Georgia did not feel like Georgia for the majority of the season. So I think the culture gets back to where it has been in the past. I think Kirby Smart is probably the hungriest head coach in the country, or at least the most vocal about how hungry he is at wanting to be successful. I think the schedule's the schedule for the most part sets up pretty good for Georgia. We talked about how crazy it was last year. They went on the road. This year they've got all these tough games at home. Early in the year they play Tennessee and Alabama both in September. Have a bye week in between them. But we know what Kirby Smart has done to Tennessee since he's been at Georgia. They play Texas in November, but a home game. It's been a long time, I think, that we've had a big November home game for Georgia. And Texas coming to town, Athens is going to be rocking. You know that's going to be the 8 o'clock ABC game, unless both these teams just fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah,
that's probably already penciled in. And then they get to play an extra home game on Black Friday in Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Georgia Tech. Playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So I'm going with the over. I think, and it's just kind of a vibe thing for me, just because I think Georgia's going to get back to what Kirby Smart expects and what he wants them to be. I think a lot of 2024 they didn't have that. You look at the wide receivers they bring in the portal, namely make sure I get it right. Zachariah Branch, make sure I get that right. Also brought in his brother from USC, Zion, played defensive back. Bring in Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, big target for.
Noah Thomas is really, really good.
Yeah, for oh my gosh, blanking on the quarterback now. I was doing so good with names, and now I blank. For whoever the quarterback is, because there's been a lot of talk about both quarterbacks that are returning for Georgia.
Oh, Puglisi. You're talking about Gunnar Stockton
and Ryan.
Yeah, Puglisi. Yeah.
Been a lot of talk about him. But I'm going with the over, mostly for vibes.
For vibes. And well, look, I'm not going to ever knock anybody for trusting what Kirby Smart has done, because you talk about last year they weren't themselves. They found themselves in a quarterfinal. They won the SEC. I mean, you can say they got there however you want to got there. They got there. But here's the thing for me. Sooner Cowboys, or no, Big Gator Swag says Georgia has to go to 2 Knoxville, week 3 tough. Environment-wise, yes.
We'll get to Tennessee.
We'll get to Tennessee in a second. Alabama's going to be the big test of who you are early in the season. That's the litmus test. I'm going to tell you right now, you're on upset watch 3 more times in the season when you go to Auburn, because that's Auburn's opportunity to stake the big marquee win, I think, of welcoming team into your place. You almost did it 2 years ago. Can you do it? There's no Brock Bowers. Can you do it this time? I think you're on upset watch against Ole Miss. We'll talk about them. And then I think you're on upset watch in Jacksonville, because you talk about there's an opportunity for another marquee win for a program that's desperately going to need it in Florida. So, I think they'll take care of business at Mississippi State. Texas, you're not on upset watch. I think that's really a 50-50 top, game. And then the Georgia Tech game, man. I mean, I know we mess around with a lot of this, but Georgia Tech played absolutely hair on fire in Sanford Stadium last year and did everything they possibly could except finish the game. That's just what happened. And that game has just become more respectable to the fact of where it's going to be competitive, regardless of who wins. So there's not really, you're going to play Charlotte, you should beat them, but that Friday, November 28th game is no longer just, hey, let's just tune up or rest some guys for the SEC title. So I think there's a legitimate cause to where when you get to 9.5, that's a lot to bet on. You're saying they're only going to lose 2. Man, they could roll. They could roll into November 15th against Texas with 2 losses already on the schedule if Gunnar Stockton isn't developed. And I'll say this too. The way they do get over that hump is if Zachariah Branch is much more than just a straight line guy. If they utilize Zachariah Branch correctly with Noah Thomas, with some of these other weapons that they have, holy cow, the offense could be dynamic, and he could be a point guard for him. So, I don't know. I like it.
I'm going
a couple comments.
We can go to yours first.
I think Georgia will lose 4 to 5 games this season. He also says I'll be in Athens for Texas and Georgia there as well. I'll go to this one. Kirby has done everything but develop a quarterback. Sans Todd Monken, Georgia's offense has been underperforming.
I've got a take for this.
Okay.
Are we trying to put it into words? Kirby Smart's a defensive guy.
Yeah.
So he is the only coach that comes to memory where people are expecting a defensive-minded head coach to develop a quarterback. So I would say that that's not fair to put that on Kirby Smart.
His job's to hire the guy to develop them, right? Like that's where you could put the criticism is if they're not developing then. And that's where a lot of Georgia fans are putting the criticism, and that Bobo's the wrong hire for them.
I don't understand that. I've never understood that.
Yeah.
I've never
says he's the head coach. I guess my argument to your point, Will, would just be his job is to hire the guy to do that. He is not in the meetings to develop the quarterback. Like Nick Saban wasn't developing the quarterback. So, okay, Sooner Cowboys says Brent Venables at Oklahoma as well. That's, I guess, fair, too, to a certain extent. Yeah, that's a good
the responsibility begins and ends with the head coach, right? Yeah. If anything is subpar, it's on the head coach to either fix the problem or change the problem or whatever. It's on the head coach. I totally agree with that, but it just seems like everybody, they jump up, well, Kirby Smart can't develop a quarterback. Why you keep saying Kirby Smart? He's a defensive guy. What other defensive head coaches are we saying he can't develop a quarterback? I feel like we don't do that for everybody else. But here I go. Here I go again. I'm a DGD. I'm an Auburn fan, but I'm a DGD. So I'm going to bat for Georgia.
I love it. To be a Gator swag, UNLV makes the playoffs. LOJK, the best football coach and basketball coach pairing in the country, Josh Pastner and Dan Mullen. God, I'd love to cover that program. All right, let's roll along, kind of speed things up here. Getting late into the evening. Kentucky 4.5. Will, we can kind of take this wherever you want to take it. Looking at the schedule real quick, I mean, they bring in Zach Calzada. That's either going to look like the smartest thing in the world, or it's going to look like what in the world were you thinking? We all knew this wasn't going to work. You need to find 5 wins. Will, they play Toledo? Okay, Eastern Michigan. There's 2. Will, I don't.
Tennessee Tech. There's 3.
There's 3. Like, can you tell me 2 more games where yep, they're going to go win that game? Now they're known as a tough team to go play at home up there, but man, they got to go to South Carolina. I'm giving the edge to the Gamecocks there. They got to go to Georgia. The teams they have at home aren't teams that really are susceptible to the upset, really, outside of, and I'll say this, outside of probably Tennessee, because they look a lot different without Nico. So I just don't know if I feel comfortable putting them at 5 wins. I think 4-8 is very, very realistic. So I'm taking the under on Kentucky here. I think this Zach Calzada thing could be absolutely – the Zach Calzada move could cost Mark Stoops his job. And you shook your head earlier because – Stoops has done a lot of good things at Kentucky and built up a lot of goodwill, and it'd be hard for him to get fired. A 4-8 back-to-back 4-8 seasons, man, though, that could really push things towards you figure out you talk to agents about who might be available in the coaching circles, and if you feel like it's better, man, I mean, back-to-back 4-8 records, which I think is very realistic for this team, and putting your faith in a quarterback that hasn't really played high level, and I don't want to disrespect Incarnate Word, but high level P4 football since 4 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels like a desperate move, and I feel like it could really backfire.
I think it's incredibly desperate. I think I don't understand it at all. I mean, of course, I have strong negative feelings towards Zach Calzada for his pit stop at Auburn, where he just that was the biggest waste of everybody's time. But yeah, I don't think Stoops could survive another 4-8 year. This seems kind of outrageous, but I think I would bet this down to under 2.5 wins.
Holy!
I mean, that's
take a 2-10 season. They also got beat in the portal pretty bad too. Their fastest player in the college football is now at LSU and Barry and Brown. Like I just don't know.
It's like their only additions in the portal are offensive line. And what's that going to do for you? I mean, you look at Toledo, you're talking about they've been the past 7-8 years one of the best teams in the MAC. I mean,
Jason Candle's a good coach.
They are not going to go into Lexington, Kentucky and blink. They're not. So I mean,
is that your way too early week 1 upset pick right there?
I'm putting them on upset watch in week 1 against Toledo. I am. I mean, that feels outrageous, but that's kind of how I feel about it. Dr. Bob says, if you have an offensive line, you can play with anybody. What if you don't have a quarterback or a running back or wide receivers? How are you going to move the ball? They may have a diamond in the rough running back. They may have a guy that they're going to give the ball to 30 times and he keeps them in games. But I don't see it. And then his other comment, some of these over-unders have me depressed. Will John Summerall be in Lexington or Auburn in 2026? Probably Lexington, because Kentucky will probably pull the trigger and get that thing done before Auburn even thinks about it.
It's just I don't know, man. And then you're done with your bye weeks by October 18th. You literally play 3 games, 2 games, and then you're like, all right, well, have fun playing Texas, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, Tennessee Tech, and Vandy, Louisville, and then hoping that you are not in the middle of a portal exodus and a new coaching change. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to make fun of Kentucky fans. It just does not look good. Like, I think this. You want to hear something? I think they could be the worst team in the SEC this year, worse than Mississippi State.
They could be.
Which is
like I said, I might take the under on 2.5 wins for Kentucky.
Jesus. Oh, it's brutal.
I mean, they really might not win a conference game. I don't see any conference opponent and think that they're better than who they're playing in the SEC.
It's like what I said earlier. We always know when you go up there and play at Kroger Field, right? There's some type of weirdness where it's like 15 degrees and the fans get into it. It's a cool little atmosphere. But the teams you're welcoming up there aren't prone to losing. Like, Ole Miss might boat race you week 2. I mean, seriously, like, we'll talk about it in a second. If Texas loses, I'll take somebody up on a nice bet. If Texas goes up to Kentucky and loses, that would blow my mind. And look, things have happened crazy before. I just think Tennessee's the most susceptible to an upset. And I think by October the 25th, there's going to be some type of plan of who the quarterback is to where you're not going to, it may not be great, but just talent-wise, Tennessee might be able to show up and win that game, which you can't do a lot in the SEC. But we're talking about a team that I don't think is very good to begin with. So it's, yeah. And Dr. Bob says the bright side, Kentucky basketball is looking up under Mark Pope. I guess, yeah, there you go. So Kentucky, God, we don't need to talk about that anymore. All right. Will, I can take this one and you can kind of flow
after. Well, if we think about what happened last year, Kentucky's probably going to go 9-3. Based off our predictions.
If Kentucky goes 9-3, the entire Crowded Booth team will be at their bowl game, no matter where it is.
Good luck.
Maybe it's the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Good luck, and not for trying to get me there. I'm there, but good luck.
Oh, that's also true. No, but seriously, like, it's a Pop-Tart Bowl. Hey, I'll hang out in Orlando. All right, let's take this one because I've got a lot of thoughts on this. There's, the check has not been written, by the way, before this show has been. I can
confirm. I can confirm.
We don't know if a check will ever be written. In that instance. I want to get this question first. Now that I have been in town for a game, I've been in town for a year. I need to go to an LSU game. Which would be the best to go to this year? I keep telling people the Florida game is going to be a fun one. Like, LSU and Florida can't stand each other, and it's kind of it's kind of like LSU Florida to me is a lot like LSU Auburn. It's not like the prime rivalry, but it's like a really good one that has really good matchups. So that's what I say. Look, I mean, I've said this multiple times on plethora of different shows we've talked about. LSU on paper has filled every single need that they needed to coming into 2025. Like, anywhere you thought they had a weakness, they went out and got somebody for it. Does it mean it's going to work? No, but for the first time under Brian Kelly, in terms of NIL spending, in terms of the budget, in terms of what you wanted to go after, the fans can't say, well, you didn't go after and get it, so why did you expect it to happen? They have young guys that are talented, but they also kind of say, we're going to push some veterans in those spots. The pass rush, the biggest thing. They had 2 pass rushers selected last month in the draft. They went and got Patrick Payton. Went and got Jack Pyburn, like you talked about. They went and got Jamari Butler out of the Big Ten. So there's life on this roster. Harold Perkins should be coming back. Whit Week's going to come back after that gruesome injury in the bowl game. And then, there's this whole concept that a lot of people love, and I've not really had a hard stance on it one way or the other, that Garrett Nussmeier might be the top quarterback in the country for a lot of people in terms of NFL prospects. The run game at LSU has to be better. The run game has to be better. My hot take, I was on the radio the other night in Atlanta. Shout out Garrett Chapman on 92.9. He asked me a hot take for 2025 for LSU. I said, I think that the Tigers will get an 1,000-yard rusher. The last time they had that was 2021, I believe. Caden Durham has that type of ability. Offensive line, they got to replace 4 or 5 starters. Much like you talked about, Will, they dipped into that Virginia Tech offensive line to go get Braylon Moore, their center. The thing about LSU for me, though, it comes down to really two things. Is the floor of the defense high enough? I don't care what the ceiling is, but is the floor of the defense, did it improve enough to where you feel comfortable in year 2 under Blake Baker? And then the second part, and Gavin makes the joke right here, Nuss statue, is the decisiveness of Garrett Nussmeier in year 2. Does it follow along the lines of the year 2 development of Joe Burrow and Jane Daniels, or is he just going to be another guy? Because there's a lot of pressure down here, this whole idea that in year 2, recently, you take this massive leap. Like, you win the Heisman Trophy. You have a championship-level offense. That's the pressure that's on Garrett Nussmeier here in year 2. So that's the two key factors. That being said, when you look at this schedule, yes, there's an interesting way to go about this, Will, and I'll kind of open it up to you here because I think that with LSU, you have this feeling that if you win in week 1, literally anything is possible. If you go to Clemson and you beat them in week 1, I'll be real with you, you are probably a top 3 team in the next week's polls, and you're one of the odds-on favorites per whatever betting service. You're in the top 3 or 4 to win the national title. That's where the hype is going to go if they win that week 1. Anything is possible. If you lose it, that's where this 8.5 gets tricky for me because then it just opens up a whole door of plethora of opportunities. I will say the check hasn't cashed. I'm taking the over. I'm taking 9 wins. I'm going 9-3 LSU is the floor, or is like more the safe bet right now. I think they could get to 10-2. A lot of things outlined there. You can kind of take it wherever you want to go. But to me, those are the two key factors. Defensive floor, how high is it? Nussmeier is a decisive decision maker. He's going to help open a lot of things and really the run game. But that week 1 game, man, is everything. Like Brian Kelly has not won one of these since he's gotten down here. And this is probably, I don't know if this is a hot take, this could turn out to be the best week 1 opponent they've faced. I know that 2023 Florida State team turned out to be really, really good. This Clemson team, we'll talk about it on Wednesday, really, really good too. But I don't know, man, that's where I sit with it. I know I'm the paid figurehead to talk about this, hoping for the bonus. I'm hoping for that extension, my guy. So that's what we're rolling with there. But no, your thoughts on it.
I agree with you. But I don't think that's saying much. You're the LSU source. You're the person that gives me all my info on LSU. So just kind of blindly follow you. Looking at this schedule, I think 10 wins, certainly the ceiling. Maybe even 11 wins. But I worry about this LSU offense because, same quarterback. So you think, probably more of the same offensively, but you keep the same quarterback. Like you said, replacing 4 or 5 offensive linemen, that's always a tall task. But felt at times last year that this offense was pretty erratic. Maybe Garrett Nussmeier at times maybe trying to do too much.
Yeah.
How does he mature as the quarterback in 2025? Where does he improve? If it's decision-making, you're probably looking at 9 or 10 wins. I'm taking the over because I'm seeing 9-3, possibly 10-2, maybe even mess around and win 11 games. And I'm opposite of you. I think that week 1 game against Clemson, I don't see them winning it because I think Clemson's that good, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday. But man, you talk about some of the additions they made. I love what they did in the secondary. We talked all year long about just how it makes you want to bang your head against the wall watching LSU secondary. They go get Mansour Delane for Virginia Tech. They go get Jakeem Jackson at Florida. Both those guys are going to play corner. The controversial, some may say, AJ Halsey coming from Houston play safety. Marcus Cooley playing safety at coming from NC State. I think those could be 4 starters. I think starting caliber players in the secondary. Secondary should be much improved. We already talked about edge rush. We talked about Pyburn coming from Florida. Bernard Gooden from South Florida, I think, is a sneaky one on the defensive line. A guy that could really be a game wrecker up front for LSU. But LSU certainly has the potential to be a ton of fun.
Yeah,
in 2025. And again, it's on the shoulders of the quarterback. I think it may just be a maturity thing for Nussmeier because I definitely think the talent is there, but Can he play within himself? I think is what
Hmm.
you're looking for in 2025.
If he does, man, like I've told people financially with what they've done with this roster in terms of spending with buying, like I don't think, and I told us last week that Brian Kelly is going to get fired if they go 8 or 9 wins. That would be it'd be a hefty amount to pay for that. But what I do think is that this is an all-in type of year. Like you literally have Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and next year you're going to have to reset some things. We talked about all those additions that you just talked about. Those are veteran guys. It's essentially like a 1-year flyer deal in the NBA. Let's go chase a ring with the core we have. And so, man, I never thought we'd be talking about college football like the NBA free agency, 1-year vet minimum deals. And I'll tell you one thing: these were not 1-year vet minimum deals that these guys got. That's for sure. So, no, I'm with you. Dr. Bob says I think LSU beats Clemson in week 1. Got a weird feeling that Kelly gets off the snide of season openers. Sooner Cowboys, or I'm sorry, Dr. Bob says that's where the Burrow-esque season LSU wins the Natty and all the prisoners at the Orleans Parish jail make a break when the guards are celebrating a Natty. I hope LSU beats OU as a top 10 matchup. Sooner Cowboy says LSU and OU trying to land Bo Bentley. Hey, Sooner Cowboys, you want a little more information on that? Make sure you get your 24/7 sports subscription where yours truly is following that recruitment there for that 2026 quarterback. LSU, we both take the over at 8.5 wins. All right, we are, I guess, on the back half here. Dear God, I just scrolled down to how many more teams we have. This is a long show. Ole Miss over under 8.5 wins. We can kind of get, I guess, more broad viewpoints here. Well, I just want to pose this question to you. Before we even get to the record or anything here, am I crazy? Okay, I don't know if you saw this. There were some reports out there, and I kind of want to buy into it because I think the natural talent is there. Somebody said, and I don't remember where it came from, that Austin Simmons might be the most. I just had a really bad list there. Austin Simmons might be the most God-given talented quarterback that he has had there. Now, I'll be real with you, man. I haven't watched a lot outside of that one drive that he had against Georgia. I don't think a lot of Ole Miss fans have watched a ton of what he's done outside of that. What are the odds? We talked about earlier in the show, like Lane Kiffin's the dude when it comes to replacing portal talent and getting it to work. Ole Miss is in a place they've never really been before, too. What are the odds that Austin Simmons picks up in this offense is as good or maybe even better than what they were in 2024? And look, they had arguably a top 5 talented roster in the country and underachieved last year. But what do you think about Ole Miss, though?
I don't know what to think because I obviously we talk about Lane Kiffin as the portal king, but I'm just like confused. You look at their portal guys.
Why? Because they took 37 quarterbacks?
He brought in 4 quarterbacks. And we're talking about, we have a guy that's a presumed starter in Austin Simmons, and Lane Kiffin goes and takes 4 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. I mean, this is crazy. Okay, well, one's a duplicate, and you're going to have to help me out here. You probably know more than I do. Pierce Clarkson. We got one line showing he went from Louisville to Ole Miss, and the next line shows him going Ole Miss to UCLA. So is he at UCLA? Let's see. Yeah, okay. It looks like he in the spring portal is going to UCLA.
So he's going to be Nico's backup.
So that's interesting. But either way, I mean, he took 4 quarterbacks. I guess now he's down to 3. Yeah, I've talked a lot about
They
Ole
just
Miss.
added another one, by the way, like this past weekend.
Which one? Is he on the site? I don't even know.
I don't remember.
I've talked about it a lot. Ole Miss is in a place they've never been before. I mean, no one has seen this sustained amount of success at Ole Miss in like 60 years. Certainly not in anywhere close in this era to what Lane Kiffin has done. So, I mean, 8.5 wins, it feels low, but I mean, you talk about having to replace Jackson Dart for a first-round quarterback. And the Achilles heel has always been the defense. So are they going to be better on defense? Hold on. Let me scroll through the 70 guys that were portal movers for Ole Miss. I mean, they went out and got some dudes on defense. Prince Will Umanmielen from Nebraska, Akello Stone from he went to Georgia Tech. Never mind, I can't read. Deshaun Womack. comes from LSU. Jalen Braxton, corner transferring from Arkansas. I mean, there's a ton of bodies. It's hard to kind of sift
It's
through.
just hard to sift through who's actually going to play.
Right. Yeah. Like who's playing, who's actually there, who's not there. It's hard to tell. But I mean, I'm kind of thinking about Ole Miss the same way I think about Georgia, where it's like Lane Kiffin is doing something never been done there before. He knows and understands the transfer portal better than anybody. I'm questioning the Antonio Kite edition, but that's on my own opinion.
That's the orange. That's the War Eagle coming at you right
That's
there.
right. Looking at the schedule, I'm going to take the over. I think they can get to 9 wins. If they can get past the mighty Georgia State Panthers week 1, I think they'll get 9 wins. They've got an SEC running back at Georgia State now, Branson Robinson.
God, dude,
Does he move the needle?
Does he move the needle? Now, I will say this though, to your point, like, and Dr. Bob says, favorable schedule. The only game they may be an underdog in is at Sanford Stadium. I will say this. Let's just give them a loss against LSU. Let's say LSU goes up there, takes care of business. You could be 5-1 heading into Georgia. You're telling me they need 4 more wins, even if they lose to Georgia. They can beat Oklahoma. They could beat South Carolina at home. They can beat the Citadel. Georgia Tech 2019 version cannot, but they can beat the Citadel. Can they beat Florida? I'm saying yes, and I'm not saying they will. I'm saying you can beat Oklahoma, you can beat South Carolina, you can beat the Citadel, you can beat Florida, you can beat Mississippi State. The only team I don't know if you can go beat is Georgia there. You can beat LSU. So 8.5, like that's a lot. Like, could you go 9-3? I just have trouble penciling or writing in Sharpie 3 losses here, or I should say 4 losses. I do. Now they could hiccup somewhere. Somebody could be better, but that schedule favors, I think, why Ole Miss is probably at 8.5 wins rather than 7.5 in that early preseason total. So that's the Rebels. I do like I do. There's a trust factor starting to build with Lane Kiffin too, in terms of building a competent roster. And regardless if he's going to get to a title or not, and whether you're an Ole Miss fan or not, you have to respect the way he's doing it over there. Because it's different, but it's working. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break so we can just wet our whistle here for a second. I don't know why I said that out loud, but we will be back. When we do come back, it'll be talking a little bit more of the SEC, the final back half of the conference here. Thank God there's no Wake Forest to talk about or Pitt.
Hey everyone, Bryce Koon here with the Crowded Booth, and I'm excited to partner with Milton and Drew McCluskey as they get on their new venture, the Cajun Cousins Company. It's an all-stop shop for some of the best food and atmosphere entertainment that you're going to be able to have, especially this fall as college football is right around the corner. What is Cajun Cousins Company? Well, Milt decided to start this business back in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where they're based out of. Drew initially joined him after spending some time with the Saints, but they offer catered Cajun delicacies such as crawfish boils and Aunt Dottie's jambalaya. They bring everything and they can set up anywhere. Look, folks, they're passionate about giving people a reason to gather and to get to the culture that they love so much. They're expanding that brand to the low country of South Carolina, the upstate area, and other areas of the Southeast. So look, if you're going to throw that tailgate party or you're going to have a big gathering, reach out to Cajun Cousins Company today over at CajunCousinsCO.com to get that quote. Tell them the Crowded Booth sent you. We can't wait to see what they have in store this fall.
I will welcome you back into the Crowded Booth here on a Monday evening. It's 10:14 on the East Coast, 9:14 down here in the Central Standard Time Zone. Don't worry, Sooner Cowboy. You have waited an hour and 14 minutes to nearly talk about the Oklahoma Sooners, and I'm going to tell you we're going to talk about them right here. 6.5 wins for our friend at Bet Online. Will, let's talk about them because I think that this is a team that needed a little bit of a change of scenery. And shout out to Brent Venables, who is probably in really coaching for his job. We talked about this last week. Venables was the guy that was on the hot seat entering 2025 for me in this conference. When you bring in a new quarterback, there's a lot of question marks. And I think if you're going to hold on to hope as an Oklahoma fan here is that you are bringing back the marriage of OC and quarterback with John Mateer. John Mateer is a really good football player. Like, you cannot just glance at his numbers and say that he's not good. Now, how does it translate to the week in, week out of the SEC? I don't know. But I think the floor is definitely higher than what they had last year offensively. Defensively, they've got to do some things. They got to replace a lot of different weapons. But also, last year, Will, was just such a crapshoot of who was actually going to be out there that it's like, well, it wasn't like they were bad with guys like Nick Anderson, who's now at LSU, on the field the whole year. Like, they just never had these guys. And so you're changing a lot of stuff. But Tier's a good quarterback. And when you look at that schedule, man, I mean, going to Michigan's going, or Michigan coming down to Norman's going to be tough, for sure. I'm excited to see if Bryce Underwood starts that game. By the way, just a little vested personal interest there. But Illinois State at Temple. Let's say you're 2-1 rolling at Auburn. I will tell you this: if you're going to get to 7 wins, here are the games that your 50-50 games that you have to win. You got to beat Auburn at home. Like, you got to go win that game. I think you got to go to Tennessee and you got to beat them. You got to beat Missouri at home. That probably gets you, if you talk about, to around the 6-win mark. Can you knock off one of Ole Miss, South Carolina, Texas, Alabama? That would get you to 7. I think they could do it. I'm excited to see John Mateer play football. That's kind of, I think that's really what it is for me.
Yep. Sooner Cowboys. Saying it right there. Where's my cursor? Nick Anderson played one play the whole season. OU was down five wide receivers pretty much the whole season. Yep. I mean, it was injury stricken. I think really the only thing we're worried about is the offense. And yeah, they should be a lot better because you go out and get John Mateer, who everybody says was the best quarterback in the portal. Matt, he's got his offense coordinator, Arbuckle, same guy had at Washington State. And oh, by the way, you bring in the guy who may just end up being the best running back in the SEC, and Jaden Ott. I mean, this dude he might be the first running back off the board in the draft. He is so good. I'm going to go with the over here. I think they can at least get to 7, and possibly more. I saw Sooner Cowboys in one of his many comments tonight said it a few minutes ago that Oklahoma was up on Ole Miss at halftime. I mean, the talent's there. They beat Alabama last year. I mean, the talent.
They just beat them. They embarrassed Alabama. So the talent's definitely there. The defense is going to be good with Brent Venables. So I think this is. I think 6.5 is definitely low, and big expectations there. I mean, you hit your over, and you still fire your coach. That would be something. If you go 7-5 and you win a bowl game to win an 8th game, I don't think you can fire him at 8-5. Yes, the expectations should be higher, but
I don't think you can wait until after a bowl game to make a decision on your coach anymore.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah.
He wouldn't even get to coach the bowl game if they made a change. But I look at the schedule. I mean, I could see 9 wins on this schedule. I mean, I think Oklahoma's a really good team. Just if they can get just competent offensively, get after last year was just so up and down, or just so down for them offensively.
Well, and the thing is, like I said earlier, it's not Jackson Arnold deserves some of the blame last year. You can't make some of the decisions regardless of who you have out there. Their circumstance in Oklahoma, like, I really encourage people to go actually look at some of the stuff like they were dealing with. They just didn't have legitimate players. Like, they didn't have guys out there to be able to play that were supposed to be at one point they had their top 7 receivers on the roster. Like, you were dealing with borderline walk-ons having to play meaningful snaps in SEC play. So they could correct it. I think they're a big boom candidate. Like, they could right the ship because of the scenario and how much has changed in the upheaval from last year. But I don't know if we're going to get into the conversation where it's 8 or 9 wins. That to me would require John Mateer would have to be a top 3 quarterback in the conference for me to say that. I don't know, man. It's, of course, you go to the Cotton Bowl. We've been there. We've never talked about it, by the way. We got to talk about that at some point.
That's got to be its
We
own
will.
pod.
We
That's
will.
got to be its own pod.
We got to talk about that. Maybe a top venue place, that we want to go to, or bucket list venues or something. But anyways, I think Sooner Cowboys said earlier in the show, if you beat Michigan, you beat Auburn, you go 5-0 or 6-0, I should say. No, I'm sorry, 5-0 into the Red River rivalry. Yeah, anything's possible after that because you could gain some serious momentum. That game typically is a launching pad for you for the rest of the season. So I like Oklahoma. I'm going to take the over. Will's taking the over, and the Sooners, man, they need a good season. They need a good season in Norman. So that being said, Mississippi State over under 3.5 wins. We don't have to talk a lot about the Bulldogs here, Will. I do want to say that I believe when looking at this schedule that I like Jeff Lebby a lot. I think it says a lot about where Mississippi State is as a program that you're scheduling a road game in Hattiesburg on Saturday, August 30th.
Okay, wait. Well, no, that is normal. Dan Mullen was playing road games at Southern Miss, so this is kind of something that they do.
Okay, apologies to you know how I feel about the state of Mississippi. So yeah, it's hey, shout out Southern Miss. I just walked onto the field. Literally walked onto the field, was standing in the end zone at one point. It's crazy. Looking at the schedule, Mississippi State is a weird team. They got bullied. Was it Toledo? It was Toledo. They got beat by Toledo last year. Like bullied inside Davis Wade. I think that game against Arizona State's not going to be a fun one for them at all, and that's going to be one where a lot of the anti-SEC crowd is going to Saturday, September 6th in Davis Wade is going to be where the anti-SEC crowd is going to be focused. They can't wait to watch
If
Sam.
If anybody, especially, I better not go there. But if anybody says anything about that game, just find the door. Find the door, man.
Just say what you're going to say. Open it up. That's fine.
I was going to say, if anybody, especially a lot of the viewers of our show, come at us about SEC is overrated after Arizona State, a top 20 team in the country, goes into Starkville and just runs up and down the field, find something else to be mad about.
I mean, I don't know a single person not wearing those colors without a cowbell in their hand that's going to be thinking that they lose that game. That being said, man, 3.5 wins is very low. Let's say they go to Hattiesburg and win, not the toughest of places. They beat Alcorn State.
Are we still going to call them the Golden Eagles? Or are we going to call them the Thundering Herd this year?
That's true. Gosh. Okay. Like, let's say they beat Southern Miss, they beat Alcorn State, they beat Northern Illinois.
Do they win another one?
Okay, I'm gonna take the over for Mississippi State. I think they can get to 5. I think they could go beat Missouri. I really do think that.
Man, that's.
I think they could go beat Missouri late in the season, and then I'm torn on at Arkansas, and then the Egg Bowl because the Egg Bowl is weird, and if Ole Miss really is taking a step back, they might be able to do it. But other than that, man. 3.5 wins. I'm taking the over on Mississippi State, but good God, I want Jeff Lebby to be good there. I just don't know. I mean, I might have to go fire up a dynasty after this and just see what I can do with them on EA 2025 because I don't know, man.
I like Jeff Lebby too. I think he's a really good coach. He certainly can become a top coach. He's definitely a top offensive mind in the game. You think about what he inherited. You look at the schedule. And you think about where Mississippi State is at the moment. I mean, anybody that they have that is good is going to be gone in the portal. Somebody's coming to get them. Somebody's going to come get them out of Starkville.
You know what's crazy?
I'm taking the under because I just don't know how they win more than 3 games. I mean, I see Arkansas because what is Arkansas going to be November 1st, right? Where are they going to be mentally? With the head coach, is Bobby Petrino going to be the interim head coach come November 1st, which would be full circle? He may not even be interim. They may just give him the job mid-season.
They're
Not even have a
serious if
coaching
they do that.
search. I think you might be sleeping on Missouri a little bit too much by saying that Mississippi
Well, I'm
State
trying to find a win
go
for
into
him, though. I'm
Como.
trying to find a win. I mean, outside, where else are you going for a win on this schedule if you're not going up to Columbia, Missouri? I mean,
I'm not even
after
real
September-
confident that they're going to go to Hattiesburg and beat Southern Miss.
I might have to skip out on the LSU Clemson game and drive up to that game.
I don't know. It's just I don't like it. I feel bad doing it. I mean, you talk. I just talked about how their top players get poached. Michael Van Buren gets poached. He's going to go be the backup at LSU. Like that is what Mississippi State as a program is right now, and it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of lean years like this one for them to.
What's
just
the
even make a
patience
bowl
level?
game?
That's the thing. I mean, you have a potential quarterback battle between Luke Kromenhoek, the new transfer, and Blake Shapen. You got
Told
Fluff
y'all,
Boswell
I've
from South
tried to
Alabama.
tell y'all about Blake Shapen.
You have, and you're I don't know. Texas fan here just laughing emoji. We're not trying to make fun of them. It's just when you see an over under at 3.5, it's like, God. I mean, and then you look at the schedule, like, they may not win a game after September 20th.
He might not. They might not. And I'll tell you, I'm like Charles Barkley. I won't even know that Mississippi State is playing football this year because it's like Charles Barkley. I only watch good teams. Like, I mean,
Could be rough. It could be really, really rough.
It's gonna be a long year.
It's gonna be a long season. They need to. And now on the other side of it, if they over surpass this, they get like 5 wins. That is a massive, massive growth part for them to go from 2 to 5 wins. That'd be awesome. I like Jeff Levy. I like what they have in Mississippi State. I mean, I like the bare bones of it. I don't really like any of the meat and potatoes of what they've got in Starkville. Not a big fan of Starkville to begin with. So there's that. Okay, let's keep rolling. Missouri, you said I'm too low on them, Will. Missouri over under 7.5 wins. New quarterback. They kind of lost that big, trio of receivers they've had. I think this is a year to decide if Elias can put together
no S.
Elias. I like Elias. Makes me feel more
The
biblical.
Sports Bureau?
Yeah, the Sports Bureau. Maybe they need to call the Sports Bureau. I don't know, man. 7.5 wins for the Missouri Tigers. I'm just going to tell you this right here. Here's my hot take out of all this. If Missouri exceeds 8 wins this year, Elias is going to get a new job. I think someone's going to come get him.
I don't know, man. I don't know. There's few places I think in the SEC that are a better spot to be than Missouri. I mean, I think behind the scenes in this NIL era, they have done so many good things. They have killed it. They're the state university. I mean, that's why Luther Burden stayed in state, wanting to play for Missouri. He didn't leave.
The area has some sneaky good high school talent too.
It does. The high school talent's there. Fertile recruiting grounds, really good in state. You could go poach some offensive linemen. You could go fight with Iowa for some offensive linemen in the Midwest. You can go down to Oklahoma and Texas and fight some SEC guys. You're centrally located, literally right in the middle of the country. So I don't know. It would be hard, I think, to get Drinkwitz out of Columbia. Looking at the roster, I got a lot of questions. Number one, what has Bo Perbula done? Like, I mean, and 24/7 calls him a 4-star transfer rating. I mean, what did he do?
Projectability. That's literally what it is.
He backed up Drew Aller. I mean, like,
and if you don't know how we feel about Drew Aller,
I think Ahmad Hardy's
still there. He also threw an inning in relief the other night in the SEC tournament. So, and we all know how bad that baseball team was. So, no, man, I don't. They're not.
I think Ahmad Hardy at running back is a great pickup.
Kevin Coleman's a dude.
Yes.
Kevin Coleman Jr. is
from Mississippi State, who we just talked about. If you're good, somebody's coming to get you out of Starkville. I don't know. Let's see. I got to look at the schedule.
I will say this too while you're looking at that schedule. Their defense is kind of sneaky. Like they got Damon Wilson at the Joker linebacker position, Josiah Trotter. They brought in those 2 transfers. I like Marvin Burks. I like, if you can believe, if the Texas fan's still here, Jalen Catalon is still playing college football, by the way, and he's back in the SEC. Sterling Webb, nice little veteran player. They got some veteran guys up front. Defensively, they could be really, really good. Like, I mean, they could be a pretty good defensive team. It's just if Prbula is more than just like a runner, then I think they can win some games. But going to that schedule, Will, I mean, when you look at 7.5 as their kind of over under total here, buddy, like I'll say this, I don't think, and this is crazy, but a lot of people here are really high on Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. That's not necessarily a gimme game. Like, you're playing Kansas, and isn't Jalen Daniels there for his 37th year of college football? So you still have him. Raging Cajuns, like, it's not necessarily like a gimme game there. You're facing UMass. I do not think Tyson Pumachan has any more eligibility left. But that being said, we're like 7 wins. So let's just kind of go through it. Central Arkansas's 1.
Kansas.
That's a rivalry game, though, man.
Louisiana, UMass.
3, 4. Okay, you're 4. Can you
Vandy,
find 4 more?
Vandy, Mississippi State, Arkansas.
I
get you 7.
Okay.
I mean, can they beat A&M at home? Can they go on the road and beat Auburn?
They could. So I guess, yeah, they could do that.
I'm taking the over. I mean, this is probably the closest one, I think. At least closest over that we've talked about. And some of the unders were kind of dicey, but I think they can get to 8 wins. And, we have Gavin helping us with our notes here. He says Drinkwitz is a fraud. All I know is he stands on business. That's all I know. Sam's not in here, so that joke's not as funny, but I just know that Coach Drink stands on business. And how much business is he going to get done in 2025? That remains to be seen.
I'm rolling with our good friend and hopefully subscriber of the show, Sooner Cowboy, taking the under. I'm not going 4-8. And I bet you Sooner Cowboys is, Will, sometimes you let your orange, your navy and orange kind of show out a little bit. Sooner Cowboy letting that old Big 12 rivalry. Remember some of those Big 12, rivalry games in Oklahoma, Missouri, that Big 12 title game. That was a lot of fun. I'm taking the under. Yeah, I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under in this. I think that I don't trust Bo Prbula. I think that's kind of where it is for me. I just don't. I'm taking the under. I think they go 7-5, 6-6, something like that. That's what I said. And see, look, he admits it. That's a real good fan of the show. I hate Mizzou. Okay, let's keep it rolling here. Here's one that obviously is a big topic of conversation. South Carolina. Will, another team, a lot of boomer bust potential here. A lot of people feel like that their quarterback situation with Lenore Sellers is maybe underrated. He's been so highly rated, but then when you get into conversations like the top 8 quarterbacks, he's on some of these lists. He's not on some of these lists. South Carolina fans are very vocal about it. To me, I'd like to see him be a little bit more polished as a passer, but I do think that all the tools are there. The big thing, Dowell Loggins no longer the OC there. He's the head coach at App State. What does that look like? Also, too, remember their running back from last year? Remember the big fella they had? So, the kid from Arkansas. Why am I blanking on his name? Rocket Sanders. You don't have him anymore. So what does the run game look like outside of Sellers? Is it literally going to be on him to win every single game for you offensively? I think that's the big thing. And I'll just say this too. Gavin loves him, one of these receivers that they have. Big old Nick Harbor. The dude needs to figure out how to catch the football. Apparently that's an issue for him. And he has all the tools in the world. Can he figure out how to catch the football? I think South Carolina defensively should be solid, play with a lot of high energy. They've gotten some upside there. But when you look at that schedule, 7.5 wins there for them. very highly thought of. A lot of people have him in the preseason top 15, I think, because of Lenore Sellers. I will tell you, I think they could roll in to Death Valley undefeated on the season. I think that's very possible. Yeah, I think they could.
Whoa.
I mean, who do you-
Wait. Okay. All right.
Oh, apologies. The real Death Valley. I'm sorry.
LSU. Well,
Yeah,
they get
that-
Clemson at home, but I was just scrolling the schedule and saw LSU and Clemson. So and my
I think
first
they
thought
could
was
roll in all fresh
11 and 0.
into LSU. Yeah, yeah, that would have been crazy. That's a bold hot take. I think they could roll into LSU undefeated, and if that's the case, you're going to have a de facto Heisman potential elimination game between Lenore Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier there. Like, I think you could have that of who's going to be eliminated from the conversation in October. That being said, if you can get to 8 wins, I think you can definitely win your first 5, right?
I agree with that.
You could beat Coastal. That gets you to 6. Oh, man.
Got to find a couple.
You got to find a couple after that. So I am going to well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the over. My couple is right here. I think they're going to go 5-0, and then I think they're going to pick off one of LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss. And then I think they beat Texas A&M on the road. I think they make it back to back with that one. And then I think they beat Coastal Carolina. That would put them around 8-4. I think they could go 8-4 this year, which I saw somebody, you see that anonymous coaches thing with Athlon Sports was like, this is their all-in year. All-in year to do what? Like, yeah, of course they've got a nice roster, but like, what are they going to do? Fire Shane Beamer? You'd be a moron to fire Shane Beamer if you're South Carolina, unless you're having losing.
And couldn't Lenore Sellers come back in 2026?
He could, if you can convince him to, and if the draft rating's right, not there. So I don't know. It's probably not favored that he would, but to your point, he could.
Yeah. Well, I'm not as high on Lenore Sellers, I think, as maybe you are, and maybe a lot of the people talking, just because I haven't seen enough of him as a passer, and I think if you want to beat South Carolina, you make them one-dimensional, which is how you beat anybody. But if you can make South Carolina throw the ball, you're going to beat them. And I think their first 5 opponents, they're gonna struggle to stop them from running. And then after that, you're playing a lot better front sevens, a lot better defenses. I'm with you. I think they pick off one of those 4 in the middle of their schedule, but probably just one. I mean, going to Texas A&M is going to be tough, but again, like I said about Georgia, this team plays with a ton of energy. They play for Shane Beamer. Things, the culture. I think they have a really strong culture. There's no metric for that. So yeah, they can probably go on the road and beat an Ole Miss or a Texas A&M, but this is so tight. But I'm gonna take the under. Go ahead and clip that. 7-5. I think it is where South Carolina is going to finish up. But still, I mean, 7-5. This is a tough schedule. I mean, it's a really hard SEC schedule. They're playing, I would say, 5 of the top 7 or 8 teams in the SEC on their schedule, and all in a row. So playing teams that are in the top half of the conference, it's difficult. If I'm a South Carolina fan, I'm feeling pretty good at 7-5. Obviously, not as good as last year, but I think they. I certainly would say they may have overachieved, maybe won some games. It kind of felt like last year they snuck up on some people, and I don't think they're going to sneak up on people this year.
I'm going to tell you the path to 9 wins. Start off 5-0. Beat Coastal Carolina. There's your 6th win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think if you really want to get a hot take, I think they could finish 9-3 with a 3-game win streak, with winning 3 out of LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss. Because if Ole Miss isn't what they think they were going to be, you go there, it's not as daunting.
Right.
The LSU one's hard because I think LSU, there's a bit of a fact of LSU like kind of knows they probably should have lost that game in Columbia last year. Not going to let slip away. That's going to be the kind of a big primetime game. I mean, it's going to be a night game, and it's going to be really hard. But man, they should have beat Alabama. It's going to be homecoming. I will tell you this, man. That's an underrated atmosphere. One of the best in college football up there in terms of the product they put out on game day. I think they could beat Alabama at there because that's. I mean, we had to go back and look at where Alabama's like, where is Ty Simpson or whoever the quarterback is for Alabama? Where are going to be some of those marquee road environments? That's going to be one in October. That could be interesting. And look, even Clemson, we love Clemson, but man, that rivalry's been kind of weird lately. And if Clemson's fighting for a playoff spot, oh my gosh, imagine this. Clemson's fighting for a playoff spot and South Carolina is too. Holy cow, the stakes in that game. That could be really fun. I mean, that could be a candidate for college game day, to be honest with you. So we'll see. Okay, let's keep rolling. We have 4 more. Well, how do you want to handle this? Because there's some big teams here. I'll let you take. It's been a marathon. All right, let's take Tennessee here. The Volunteers. I mean, man, over under 8.5 wins. I don't really know how you feel about this. The loss of Nico has just reset everything. You don't have James Pierce. You do not have Dylan Sampson, which was kind of the linchpin for that entire offense last year. Norman Lott is obviously gone there in the middle. But like our friend Gavin said, that D-line coach, you got to love what he brings to the table in terms of how he coaches and how he develops. Should be a respectable unit. And that was the bullet point. I think Tennessee as a whole this year, I don't think they're going to be flashy. I don't think they're going to be great. I think they'll be respectable. So when you talk about 8.5 wins, man, I want to pull up the schedule. I guess you tell me what you think about that roster before we get to the schedule with Tennessee.
I'm really worried about their offense. Like you said, Nico out, Joey Aguilar in, the late addition coming from UCLA, App State to UCLA, now to Tennessee. Certainly think he's a serviceable quarterback at worst. Had a really good 2023 at App State. Kind of took a step back in 2024. But I think that's a bit of what was around him. They bring in Star Thomas at running back, coming in from Duke.
Good player. Good football player.
Really good player. Big back, 6 foot, 210 pounds. I mean, if he can step in and do what Dylan Sampson did, I mean, I may not see this offense really skip a beat.
There's Pete.
I don't know, man. I think you're asking a lot. I think there's kind of been a little bit too much upheaval, especially when it happened, especially with your quarterback leaving.
Yeah.
Asking this program to get back to the playoff next year, I feel like it's asking a ton. And you look at the schedule, they go to Alabama now. They go to Florida late in the year. I mean, those are really their 2 big road games. So, if they could pick off of Georgia at home, they could beat Oklahoma at home. I mean, the schedule sets up well for them, but I worry about, all the talk has been that's probably good for this team, not having the big Nico distraction and quarterback wanting more money and those sorts of things. It's just really hard. But I'm going to go under 8.5 and say they go 8-4.
Yeah.
Just, kind of saying they lose that game at Alabama. If Florida, if DJ Lagways is spinning it like we think he might, Florida probably has the edge going on the road. Georgia at home. I mean, Kirby Smart has just owned Tennessee. The game I'm circling is week 1 in Atlanta. What is Fran Brown going to look like coming out year 2 at Syracuse? Well, I mean, we'll get more into that on Wednesday, but that feels like an interesting game with kind of how the state of Tennessee right now.
Yeah,
that game's going to be interesting. I mean, you're not getting a cupcake per se your first game of the year.
When I look at this, I was kind of trying to check off games that I felt comfortable saying Tennessee would win. So I went with the Fighting Buccaneers of ETSU up there in Johnson City. I went with Maxwell's UAB Blazers, Mississippi State, who we've already poked fun enough. So there's 3. I feel good about New Mexico State. There's 4. You need 5 more to hit the over on this. And that's just simple math for all you people out there. So you need 5 more. Do you find 5 more? I think they beat Kentucky. There's 6. Or there's 5 wins. I'm sorry. I think you beat Arkansas. I just think some of these games that you probably had the edge because of the talent that Nico had. I just don't know if you have that edge. I think the roster is still pretty good. But like man, the quarterback position, it has to be very, very good. And 8.5 wins, you're talking about if you're hitting the over, you're a playoff contender. And I don't think Tennessee's a playoff contender in 2025. So I'm with you. I'm taking the under. I'm going 8-4. To me, it's gonna be pretty interesting. So we'll kind of see how that rolls. Tennessee Volunteers. All right, the Aggies. My God, if I have to watch Marcel Reed just run the zone read all over LSU again, I literally might inflict personal pain on myself. A&M 7.5 wins. Man, the Aggies, it's kind of crazy to think about. I was talking this the other day. The Aggies and Tigers rolled into that game in College Station, number 1 and number 2 in the SEC, which is just nuts to think about how A&M ended the season and even kind of had an outside shot in that last one. But Texas A&M here, man, is a team that when you look at kind of the DNA, and I know people were disappointed with the season, the fans were in terms of, how it ended. I will tell you, I think, and just reading some clippings and even talking with some of the Texas A&M beat writers, the Aggie culture is literally tenfold better than it was 2 years ago. And they're getting to a point where you feel good. Now, at some point you have to perform, right? And I think this comment right here kind of backs it up. When is it time to stop gifting A&M a ranking every year? First off, I think they were deserving of a top 25 ranking. Like when you get from teams 20 or maybe even 17 to 25, like you could rank about 15, 20 different teams there. Looking at that schedule, chance to make a statement. Ooh, you ready for this one, Will? You remember when a young Kirby Smart-led Georgia team went up to South Bend and had their program statement win? That's the type of opportunity that Mike Elko has at A&M. Like, that's that type of opportunity. You're probably going to be 2-0 rolling into that game, going up to Notre Dame Stadium, going to be a nationally televised game, obviously massive implications with what happened last year, very hard-fought physical game. A&M has lost a lot. There's no doubting that with what they lost in terms of the defensive line. And, you need Marcel Reed to be more consistent. But, man, you got some weapons. Marcel Reed, if he takes another jump in that, he is the guy. Like, that's your starting quarterback. There's no debate about that coming into this year. You did lose a lot of production. You got to replace it. We know they recruited a pretty good level. I think there's an opportunity for A&M to have a good season this year, but I don't know, man. I mean, you start to look at that schedule. Do you find 8 wins? Like, are you finding that? Because that's the baseline if you're going to hit.
I feel pretty confident with 7. Okay. But again, this feels similar to LSU. I think there's a lot of similarities you can draw between these, at least both offenses. Pretty erratic. Yeah. And kind of at the quarterback position. Thinking last year, Texas A&M found a way to lose that game against Auburn. In Auburn. And you're talking about, man, if Mike Elko can get his program-defining win at Notre Dame, it feels like it would be so Texas A&M for them to come back home 2 weeks later and lose that game against Auburn.
And you're not just saying that because you're an Auburn fan. That is very much a Texas A&M type of thing to do.
Yes. I feel like if I was an A&M fan, I'd be like, I would rather play Mississippi State before Auburn if we're gonna go beat Notre Dame, or I'd rather play Arkansas right away instead of Auburn, even with all of Auburn's question marks. But I feel really confident about finding 7, getting that 8th win. It's going to be tough, but I mean, we talk about the home field advantage that they have, so you got to feel really good about their home games. They're going to be in all those home games, I think. Man, I don't know. I'm going to go over, but I'm sitting at like 8-4. I mean, I don't really see 9 wins for Texas A&M this year, but I mean, I really like what they did in the portal. I mean, they brought in some dudes, Casey Concepcion from NC State, Mario Craver from Mississippi State. Say it again. If you're in Starkville and you can play, somebody's going to come get you. Tight end, they bring in a dog, Micah Riley. So disappointed that Hugh Freeze just like couldn't find a way to use Micah Riley because that dude plays 110%. Defensively, they bring in Tyler Onyedem from Iowa State on that defensive line. Brought in Julian Humphrey from Georgia, Jordan Shaw from Washington to help out in the secondary. So brought in some dudes that are going to come in and probably contribute and play a lot of snaps. So, but can Marcel Reed, similar to Garrett Nussmeier, can he play within himself? Because he's incredibly talented, maybe the best athlete at the quarterback position in the SEC in 2025. But can he play within himself and not lose games for Texas A&M? Doesn't necessarily have to go win them for him, but can he just not lose them?
Yeah. Here's another social media clip for you. That's good. A little soundbite. I'm going to roll with you. I think that this is kind of like the Missouri one. This is a kind of a tough line to really gauge, and that's why Vegas is good at what they do, I guess. Shoot, I'm going to take the over at 8-4. I think there's a path to 9 wins if Marcel Reed really takes a jump. They're going to have growth in areas that desperately need it, though, to hit the over in this. And then I think they're going to have to, Gavin put this in this, they're going to have to win some road games. They're going to have to win some games they shouldn't win on paper. Like, they're going to have to go to LSU and beat LSU. They're going to have to go to Texas and have to beat them. And not even those. Like, you're not going to be favored. They're going to have to not mess up in Columbia, Missouri, if that makes sense. Like, they got to go win that game. They got to go take care of business at Arkansas. Those are the games you have to have. And then you've got to pick off, a Florida and Auburn, a Florida and Auburn, a South Carolina at home that could be a really good matchup. So, I don't know, kind of interesting right there. All right. We have 2 more teams. Let's knock out the Texas Longhorns. We got some Texas fans in the comments. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate y'all. Some new viewers in. That's awesome as well. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. The Texas Longhorns I will tell you this. I really, 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 really think this is a very talented team, and I will say this right now. I don't think Arch Manning has to live up to the hype for Texas to win a national title. Hear me again when I say that. There's a lot of hype surrounding him. A lot of people are going to place this lofty expectation. I think Steve Sarkisian is such a good coach, and I think this team is really, really talented. I think they have really good depth in key spots to the point where Arch Manning does not have to play to a Heisman level for this team to win a national championship. That's how good I think they are around him. You take a look at that schedule, Will, with what Texas has going on. Obviously, you've got that primetime game there at the end of the season against the Aggies. You've got the primetime game to start off the season there at Ohio State. But, man, outside of that, in the middle of it, you got to go to Georgia. But you talk about, truthfully, if you are who you think you are at Texas, you should only at most have 1 loss heading into that game against Georgia. Like, am I crazy? Is that crazy to say? Like, I think that's
at most.
At most. And you're talking about this is a de facto playoff team. This is a team that should be in the top 5 of the conversation, the national title. I will tell you, at 9.5 wins, man, I think there's pressure. I'm taking the over. I think Texas gets to at least 10 wins. I think this is a really good football team, and this could be the year the Longhorns win the national title.
Yeah, I'm taking the over too. I think on paper, the only 2 teams that match up with Texas, again on paper, on May 26th, is Ohio State and Georgia. I think on paper, you should think, pencil in, don't write it in pen, but almost kind of pencil in a win for every other game. That's just looking at talent level. I know Sooner Cowboys not going to want to hear that, but on paper, that's why they're over under win totals at 9.5.
Yeah,
and that's the expectation, and that's what Vegas thinks, and they're very good at their job. They expect Texas to beat everybody on that schedule. Why is my camera not focused? This is what happens when we do long shows.
Yeah, we're nearing the 2-hour
things
mark.
like this happen. It's still not wanting to focus. I'll fix it in a second. But the expectation is that they're going to win all these games, maybe except Ohio State and Georgia. So I'm kind of in the same camp as that. So I'm gonna say 10-2. And we talk about how things are crazy, and I feel like it feels crazy to say, but I feel like 10-2 is the floor for this Texas team. I mean, that is crazy
The
to say. And
playoff's the floor, right? Like the playoff is the floor, I think, for this team, and that
It's
would be
gotta
10-2. I don't think. Yeah, I think 10-2 is the floor. I agree with you.
It's got to be. We know how crazy the Red River shootout is. I don't call it what they call it now.
I applaud you for that.
We know that one's weird, and I would not be surprised to see Texas maybe go into Columbus and pick off Ohio State. That would be nuts. And you talk about the hype about Arch Manning. If he goes in and wins that game, get ready to hear Arch Manning every day, 20 hours a day.
I love that. Sooner Cowboy says, I think Texas loses 3 games this college playoff, and the Texas fans is just when I thought we were reviving. No, I love it.
If Texas loses 3 games, there's no way they're missing the playoff. For the 12-team playoff, they're not going to leave Texas out. Texas would have to probably go 7-5. Maybe, I mean, if they
don't get too crazy,
we're talking about brand value. We got to talk about brand value all the time.
Yeah.
8-4, they probably don't get in, but like 9-3, they're in the playoff because they're Texas. And we don't like to say that, but it's the reality.
Yeah, no, I like it. And even right here, definitely now's the time to get Ohio State. Most of the defensive front getting replaced, both running backs and to go on new quarterback. It's a great time to catch them, right? And I think Texas has a lot of talent. I'm taking the over in that one. Last but certainly not least, Will's favorite quarterback in the SEC, Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt.
Did I put him number 1?
You did put him number 1. We gave you some grief for it. I'm going to tell you this right now. Vanderbilt's going to be, Will, 4-1 rolling in to Bryant-Denny Stadium on October the 4th. The schedule gets harder. Okay. I think they're going to have 4 wins before their first bowl game for the first 5 weeks. I'm sorry. Like 4.5 is low for me.
They got that big game September 20th. Georgia State Panthers head to Nashville.
Vengeance, man. They got to go beat them. Georgia State beat them last year.
September is sneaky tricky, I think, for Vanderbilt, and that's probably why they're at 4.5.
Road games, Lane Stadium, and then going to Willie Bryce. That's
now they don't have to go to Columbia in Cocktober, so they're avoiding that. But that's tricky. At Virginia Tech, at South Carolina, that's tricky. But no, I would say at worst they'd be 4-1 heading into into Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. I don't think they're going to sneak up on anybody this year. They better not sneak up on Auburn November 8th. You will. The video, the crash out that I have on from if Auburn, if Hugh Freeze finds a way to lose to Diego Pavia again, will be. I can't even put it into words. I'm already getting too fired up about it.
Too fired up.
Yeah. But I'm taking the over. Taking the over on Vanderbilt. I think they get to a bowl game again. I'm with you. They start 4-1, but man, go to Alabama bye week, and then they host LSU, and then they play Texas 2 weeks after that. That is a crazy stretch in October.
They have to win in September. That's kind of the whole meat of this. I mean, Diego Pavia is a gamer. He's a baller. He's going to elevate the team. Whoever's on that group, they probably, can we say this? Probably the best tight end in the SEC. And Eli Stowers, like he's good. He's really
very good.
Very, very good. They've got some guys. They got some dudes. All that to say is if they take care of business in September, they're going to hit this. If they don't, you're going to have to pick off you're going to have some type of crazy thing, which, hey, it's Vandy. Apparently that's what they're known for now. So yeah, I don't know. Over. We're both taking the over though on Vandy because I think they could win their first 4. I could win first 4 out of their 5 and beat Kentucky and get to 5. And then maybe they pick off somebody. Hopefully, pray to God it's not on November the 8th. I'll leave the group chat. So That'll be that. But hey, listen, we appreciate everyone tuning in for what is going to end up being a 2-hour live show here tonight. That is awesome. Some new fans in. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on a Monday evening, as well as on the West Coast, or not on the West Coast, on the East Coast. It is 11 o'clock. So we appreciate you tuning in. Will, you need to get to bed. You got work tomorrow after what I'm sure was a very fun day. Enjoy Memorial Day. Hats off. Thank you for all the folks that sacrificed their lives and a happy Memorial Day. Hope everyone's celebrated accordingly. A lot of people get that holiday mixed up, by the way, which is not good in terms of what it really means. So we do appreciate everyone who laid their life down for the country. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I just subscribed to Sooner Cowboys Says. Share with your friends. Look, we do some awesome stuff here. We're live every single Monday and Wednesday night talking college football throughout the season. And obviously the offseason schedule is a little bit hectic, especially with the guy over here getting married. We're going to keep tabs on that. But we've got some great stuff, some guests, some content coming here in the near future as well. So we appreciate you. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Crowded Booth, where it's all college football all the time. We appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will catch you next time here on the Crowded Booth.